The entire contents of this podcast and website are based upon the opinions of Tammy Garcia and her guests, unless otherwise noted. The information on this podcast is not intended to replace a one-on-one relationship with a qualified healthcare professional and is not intended as medical advice. It is intended as a sharing of knowledge and information from the research and experience of Tammy Garcia and her guests. This is the Naturally Inspired Podcast, coming to you from our 1890 homestead in Johnstown, Colorado. I'm Tammy, and I want to thank you for joining us. Let's get started and help people feel good so they can do what they love for longer. Today on the Naturally Inspired Podcast, we have Christi Sullivan. And Christi is a skilled level 4 Czech practitioner, holistic lifestyle coach, and PDTR practitioner. She holds a Bachelor of Science in Exercise Physiology and Associates of Arts in Physical Education. She is the founder of Loveland Yoga and Core Fitness. She's the creator of Strength Yoga. She is the FMA Strength Coach Level 2. She's a Metabolic Typing Advisor, a Neuro Kinetic Therapy Practitioner, that's Level 3, and she is also a certified PDTR practitioner. So welcome, Christi Sullivan, to the Naturally Inspired Podcast. I'm really excited that you are on. I am feeling the pressure a little bit.
Well, thank you for having me. It's hard. It's a hard topic.
Yeah, we had a chance to sit down for a pre-interview, which I'm so grateful for because I learned so much just from chatting with you that little time that we had together. And I feel the pressure because it's such a complex subject that we're going to talk about today. But before we get started, let's talk a little bit about you. So can you tell me where you were born?
Cheyenne, Wyoming, just up the road.
Nice. And when did you come to Colorado?
In 99, I was still married at the time, and he was in the Air Force, and it was the next duty station. So he was Commandant of Cadets at CSU and UNC, and we moved to Fort Collins. We bought a house together with his parents because his parents were teachers for Dodds. So they were in Germany, and they were going to retire at the same time we were going to leave, which was 3 years later. And we got divorced 3 years later, which was fine. It was very friendly, and it was, paths were just growing farther away is all.
Right.
And so I stayed, and then started working at Orchards when it was Orchards Athletic Club in 2004, actually. And
Orchards is in Loveland.
Loveland.
And that's where you live now?
Yes. I've been in Loveland, since 2004. And I've worked at Orchards, and then in the midst of that, I don't know how long I was there, maybe 5 years. And then I opened up my studio downtown Loveland, which is Loveland Yoga and Core Fitness.
Okay, so tell us about that. So what do you do now?
I still do personal training. I do PDTR, which is what we're going to talk about. I mainly specialize in corrective exercise, and corrective exercise can mean anything. It can mean I'm correcting your squats or push-ups or whatever. It doesn't mean super simple micro movements, but sometimes it can, and so it just really depends. And that's where my PDTR comes in on help clearing some things that might be holding you back for flexibility or strength or mobility. And then, of course, I teach yoga, and I have instructors that teach at my studio. And in the midst of this, I developed my own style of yoga, basically, that I call strength yoga. And really what I'm doing with that is I'm applying strength and conditioning concepts into the class, because in my opinion, as long as you're doing squats, lunges, and push-ups, you're in a strength and conditioning class. And I don't care that you call it Utkatasana and Warrior One and Chaturanga.
Right. Well, yoga definitely requires strength. I can,
does. It absolutely does. And
I can
really,
definitely
you won't
verify
get,
that.
yeah, and you won't get flexibility anyway, sustaining flexibility without stability for the joints, which requires strength.
Right.
So yeah, absolutely. And so, and then some of my classes, I utilize hand weights as well.
Great. You have so many certifications. I mentioned them before this, and the one that stands out for me, well, just there's so many, but can you tell us, you are a skilled level 4 CHEK practitioner. Can you tell us what CHEK stands for?
Yes, CHEK is an acronym for Corrective, Holistic, and Exercise in Kinesiology. Paul Chek started the institute. I cannot tell you when. I can't remember that.
Okay.
yeah. So when I was working at Orchards as a personal trainer, I was looking for CECs for my certification, and I just reading through this booklet found a course that he was offering called Scientific Core. And just the write-up of it, I was like, oh my God, I want to do this. This sounds like me, right?
Right.
And so then, I ordered it, and oh my God, it was VHS. I still have them. Oh my God, I still have them. I can't get rid of them.
You have a VCR?
I do. I have the attachment.
That's cool.
I'm gonna have to.
I wish we had kept ours.
And I'm sure he's done in a second edition, but it doesn't matter. I took it I took literally word for word what he was saying in there. But anyway, as soon as I started to watch the videos, I fell in love with this program.
Right.
He's an amazing teacher, has an amazing program, and those are prerequisites. You have prerequisites to get into any of his programs. So I had to do that plus a couple of other ones just to get into exercise coach. And then there's CHEK level 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then there's master CHEK. And in each of those, you have prerequisites to get turned in and a certain score before you're allowed to come in. And then it's either a 5 or a 10-day course, depending on which one you're going to. And when you start getting into level 3 and level 4, you have to put in case studies. And
oh, wow.
Yeah, my case study to get approved.
So when you say case study, you would pick a client or pick a person?
I pick a client and
with an issue?
With an issue and run through the protocol that I was taught. Okay. And it's big. This protocol is big because my case study for level 3 was 50 pages long.
Wow.
Yeah, and then for level 4 was 100 pages long, and the assessment turns into from like an hour and a half to 3 hours as you're transitioning, because we're assessing so much, and it's not just the physical that we're assessing, we're also assessing physiological loads. So these are stress levels, and so this also gives us an idea emotionally and mentally where the stress is as well, because we all know when we're under emotional stress, we're more fatigued. Right? We all know that.
Yes.
Which means your training program needs to be altered for the day. And so it's a daily readiness assessment sheet that we go over, and that way and it helps the person start to become in tune with their body.
Right.
And so they start knowing, oh, okay, I need to cut this in half. Like I'll do this in the studio when I'm teaching classes. I'm just watching everybody, and you just sit there and you're like, I can lead a horse to water, but I cannot drink. Right. I certainly can't beat a dead horse.
Right.
And so when you just see people just falling apart in a strength-oriented class, whether power yoga, vinyasa yoga, it doesn't matter. You got to be able to shift gears really fast too, and explain to everybody, listen, you're falling apart because you don't have the energy. So keep trying.
So with these certifications, with all that you've accomplished in your training, you're really a movement specialist, aren't you? You can really assess the body and just pinpoint why someone's maybe favoring a certain leg, or they're shifting this way. So you're really receptive, and you're really, taking in information as you look at people. And
absolutely, every movement you do becomes an assessment for me.
Yeah. Your body's giving cues.
Your body does not lie. Yeah.
No matter what you say or what you think.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I was working with a client today and she has limited mobility of the shoulder, bringing the arm forward and shoulder flexion. And what she did to make it look like she had more range of motion is that she actually dropped her head and flexed down, which did increase the range of motion. And she goes,
Yeah.
no, that's better. I'm like, no, you
You
just
cheated.
cheated better. You just cheated better. That's all. Good luck. Let me clear this out. It'll be better. Trust me.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I want to ask you next is, how did you kind of get started in natural health? Where I can see your passion for all of this study of movement, but how did you get started with the holistic side and
Oh, the
natural
holistic side.
health?
Well, you know what? I think it actually started more like in childhood and such. Like I grew up, we had an enormous garden and my grandma had a garden like my grandma's plot was huge, and I learned about canning and, planting gardens. My dad hunts. So we grew up on gardens and wild meat. To tell you, I didn't actually have regular store-bought meat till I was probably 18. I was like, this is like a weird taste.
Yeah.
Especially when it was for like turkey, because I'd only had wild turkey. And I'm like, this is weird.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah. So you definitely saw a difference in the quality and taste of the food?
Oh yeah, it is. And when you clean up somebody's diet and then give them something that they haven't had for a while, they'll start to put that together as well.
Yes.
And they'll be like, oh, this doesn't taste right, or you need more, or because there's less nutrients in it, so you need more. And when you have something that's more nutrient dense, you don't need as much of that food. Right. Which is huge, because your body's sensing that you're trying to put something in it and it can't find it, and
it's looking for nutrient. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, what's this? Eat more. Oh no, not, type of thing. Yeah. So I've always been that way. So when I say that now, it makes it sound like everybody in the house is athletic and healthy. I'm the only one.
They were doing those things with the garden and they were hunting and stuff, but
my dad's physically fit. My dad's physically fit, not overweight. My mother and my sister both are. Okay. And, there's an emotional aspect to all of that. And absolutely. So, yeah. So, and late in life, they started to really recognize that and try, because now there's health problems. My mom's got diabetes. Now, because of the diabetes, there's heart issue, thyroid issue, etc. So now that's got that cascade effect. Right. And they're trying, which is good. That's the best part, right? Yeah. And so
it's always better if you can get ahead of it, right? Like we talk about here a lot, is being proactive.
Exactly.
We always want to start on the path before we have to make changes because we're not functioning anymore.
Exactly. So, like at 12, I'm like, I don't want to sit and read a book and then just eat, Mm-hmm. And so I'd been in sports though my whole life, even before then. So I was just more serious about it now at this point. And I know it seems like 12, that seems really young, right? And mm-hmm. then around 16.
But I do think you have an intuitive capability about you. Just meeting with you with our pre-interview and stuff, I really sensed you had an intuitive quality. So I'm sure that at 12 years old, you had that too. So that was maybe.
Yeah, exactly. You're like,
I gotta get moving here.
Like, that looks like that's really hard, and then, but at 16, I was bulimic for a little while. And so, but it seemed like I stumbled onto it because, you have the flu, and then you go, why was I weighing myself after I threw up? I don't know. I mean, you're 16, you're sick, and you're just going to check, the things that we do when we're under stress, that not ideal emotional state. Right. And then then that cascaded.
So you've had seasons in your own health through this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so, of course, I did go to see a psychologist, but I would have to say that didn't help me. That didn't help me at all. It actually, I felt it made everything worse. I was trying to do all the things that she was asking, and I was throwing up more, and I didn't understand things that were going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm at a session, and she goes, Christy, this is like being an alcoholic. Once you're one, you're always one. And it's one of those moments of clarity, at 17, I did curse at her. I did say F you.
Wow.
I said, I'm going to fix this myself.
Wow.
And I walked out, rode my bike home, and that's exactly what I did. I sat there and went, why am I doing this? Not understanding the deeper emotional aspects that are a part of this.
Right.
And I go, you know what? What I'm picking up is that I'm bored, right?
Okay.
Yeah. And so I'm like, I got to occupy myself. So how am I going to occupy myself to distract me from all this? And I learned how to do acrylic nails. Trust me, that takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't directing it towards food at this point yet. And even though it was all about food, but that's not about food.
Right.
That's right. It's about food and not about food at the same time.
Would you say it's more about control?
Yeah.
That's what I have read certain articles about eating disorders and whatnot. And
absolutely.
Bottom line impression I get from those sorts of things is that it's a form of control for people.
Because you have such a lack of control in everything else. And you're like, I've got to get a hold of this. Right.
Right.
And so when it did come to food, I made sure it would have to be something I would have to prepare that wasn't quick or easy or anything like that. And by the time, the food is prepared or whatever, that sensation of panic or what have you has subsided. And and you go, oh, well, I can now eat to be satiated versus trying to, cover up whatever it is. Again, at 17, I'm not understanding that. I understand that aspect of it now.
Right.
And then that's really what got me going. And then, my associate's degree is in physical education, and then my bachelor's degree is in exercise physiology. Right. And it really evolved organically in all of this. And when I was married, I was like, why is this food that was doing so well for me is now not doing well for me? And I'd go research it out and go, oh, well, this is interesting. And so I would just pull it out and just put it back at like pasta, It's like, it's not that I can't have pasta. It's like, I probably shouldn't be eating it every single day.
Because it doesn't make you feel good.
Yeah, it wasn't making me feel good. I was feeling puffy and I was starting to gain weight. And so I pulled it out, shifted the pasta for something else.
Right.
And puffiness went away, and that puffiness was inflammation, which of course is water, which is weight oriented. And then I would lose weight. And so it was like, there was this intuitiveness that I was picking up around the food, and really not getting attached to the idea that food was good or bad.
Right.
It served a purpose. So some people will see me eat things that look like, oh my God, I can't believe you're eating that.
Yeah.
And they think it's my meal off. And I'm like, no.
This is how I roll. I just eat what I need. I think I need.
Yeah. And then if for some reason, if there's something emotional, like if I have this, oh my God, I want a Reese's peanut butter cup.
Right.
I go, okay, well, wait a second. Is this something emotional? Is this something that I just simply want as a treat?
Right.
And I've taught my body different ways to talk to me to let me know about that, because sometimes it's not so apparent if it's emotionally driven or not.
Right.
And so if these thoughts are coming up and I just want to run into Walgreens or whatever and grab whatever, well, first I just drive past it and then just go on with my day.
Right.
And if the whole thing goes away, then that's probably something that was just more emotionally driven. For me, this is, maybe not for everybody.
This sounds like intuitive eating. Is that?
Yeah. Yeah. In a sense. And if I still, for some reason, go, no, you know what? I still want that. I'll eat. I'll just go get it. I'll just go 2 little ones. I don't need a whole bag, and just eat it. And, and if it's just for that satisfaction of a treat, my body responds actually quite favorably. But if Huddly, this is my body, but if it's emotionally driven, I get a bellyache. Yeah. And so then I go, oh, okay. And so
you really need that.
I didn't need it. Yeah. That emotion need it. Now it's coming up to the surface because now I don't feel good. Right. And then of course you're not quite sure what it is about, something got triggered and it starts to come to the surface and, you start to sort it out. Yep.
That's very interesting. I think there's definitely something there because the thought of deprivation, you cannot have this ever, I think is a trigger for a lot of people.
It really is, because you know what, you need to have your treat.
Yeah.
You need to have your treat, and so I just let's say I decide, what, I have to have these 3 little miniature Reese's peanut butter cups. I need to have them every day. Let's say that was the case.
Right.
And I go, okay, well, if that's the case, well, then I need to alter the rest of my day as far as calories. So, that's fat and sugar. So then I go, okay, well, then I need a little bit less fat and sugar at this particular meal.
Right.
Yeah. So that way I'm not overdoing it.
It's about balance for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I teach my clients the same thing too. Yeah. It's like, well, don't deprive yourself because it's a treat. You're a living, breathing human being who wants to have fun, who doesn't want to be told what to do and parented by this imaginary person that's trying to control you.
Right. I love all the pieces of your business and how you help people, because it's a synergistic lifestyle that you're promoting. You're covering their movement, you're covering just the way they work out, you're a trainer, and then you're also helping people heal. And this is where your passion lies, and I want to move on to next. Is PDTR.
Yes.
So we're going to do our very, very best here.
Yes.
So first off, it is tough, but incredibly fascinating to me.
Oh my God. And it's terribly
fascinating.
And it's incredibly powerful.
Yes.
I mean,
absolutely.
I love this tool.
I can see why. Yeah. So let's start off and tell me what PDTR stands for. What is PDTR?
So P stands for proprioception and the DTR stands for deep tendon reflex. Okay. So the proprioception aspect of it is sensations that we're capable of feeling. Okay. Slaps, pokes, vibration, hot, cold, the sensation of your bladder telling your brain, hey, get to the bathroom, lady.
Okay.
Yeah, that type of stuff. That's, it's a sensation heading up to the brain to give us some information.
Okay.
And yeah. And so those things can, for some people, I mean, I've been treated. I was treated on Friday for some dysfunction that was going on in my shoulder for PDTR. So this is, anybody can have this. Uh-huh. It's just depending on, is it causing a problem or not? Right. And so you might find that you have a lack of range of motion in the shoulder. And let's say it just starts off that way. And let's say you don't do anything about it. Or let's say stretching and helps it for a little while. Right. But yet it doesn't resolve it altogether. Something still keeps making that range of motion not so ideal.
Limited.
Oh, and now we have pain.
Okay. Yeah.
And now we're going, oh my goodness, what is going on, right?
Now I have to do something.
Exactly. And this is why there's so many modalities out there, because it is about a toolbox. You know what? Maybe the chiropractor is going to work for a little while. Right. I go to chiropractors. They're amazing, right?
Yep.
Maybe it's the massage therapist. I go every month, whether or not I know she's going to be able to help that particular issue or not.
Right.
I don't actually care, because first of all, I like being massaged. It feels good. And I'm like, and if you can make that feel better, that's even better.
Yeah.
But if you can't, because of now of how I know things are working,
Right.
it's okay. It's not a big deal. I'm going to feel better for a little bit.
Right.
And of course, you know, PTs do an amazing job.
Yeah.
And sometimes those things don't help all the way. Right.
Right.
And so
This is
where I
another
come in.
tool.
It's another tool. And you know what? There's tons of doctors, chiros, medical doctors, osteopaths, personal trainers, physical therapists in the PDTR program. So they're catching on to this as well, and they're finding that amazing results as well. And so, and I do try to explain to the best of my ability why that particular adjustment or PT didn't fully capture what was happening. And I'm going to come in and do this PDTR correction. And we're going to now all the work they have been doing with the PT and the chiro or whomever, to me seems like it's now going to come flooding into the system and start to really resolve. So there's
and that's what you mean when you say you've cleared the area.
I'm going to clear the area. Yes, because I know what I've done on your neck.
Yeah.
I can see that side bend is gone. I've been looking.
Yes. I got to experience some PDTR with Christi. So, and it was really amazing. It was really
and you'd
amazing.
had that side bend, that chronic side bend since you were 5.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It was definitely apparent, like in all my school pictures. It was just something that I had gotten used to, you know, just placing my head that way.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And it's really cool when I go, oh, well, let's see what I can do with that. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So I will still do a muscle test. Okay. If the muscle goes, if the muscle test goes weak in the clear, and it's actually specific testing, it's not as harsh as like a physical or a PT or a chiro when they're doing the test.
Right. So probably some of our listeners may or may not have heard of muscle testing. Can you briefly tell us what muscle testing is?
Well, because I do it so much, I don't know why I can't, I will do my best to explain.
Okay.
So if I have if your arm is out in front of you, shoulder height.
Yes.
And my hand is on your wrist.
Yes.
I'm going to ask you to press up to match my pressure as I'm pressing down. And I'm going to see if the muscle, the arm flexion in general, I'm testing a collection of muscles, and we're going to see if that movement is strong or weak. And if it's weak, I'm going to start doing some PDTR stems essentially to see what I can do to make it go strong.
So you use the muscle testing so first you're assessing people. You're looking for cues, like me with my.
So walking is, because you were sitting, that was the most obvious one.
Right.
But what I do is first, obviously I'll get a history. What's the main complaint? Like lower back pain, knee pain, shoulder pain, neck pain, what have you. And then I take you out into the yoga room if there's no classes going on, and I video your gait, you walking back and forth.
Right.
Because that's going to speak volumes on where I'm going to head and how you're trying to compensate for that particular pain. Okay.
Right.
And then I'm also going to video you on how you sit down. And because how you sit down will also speak volumes as well, because the body's trying to avoid the painful area, whether you're feeling pain or not in that area. It's going to try to avoid that. And it's really eye-opening. And I show my clients what I'm doing. I said, do you see this? Do you see this? And they really see it. They don't feel it.
Right.
But then they go, oh my God, this is crazy. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to work on this. This seems to be the biggest, or what have you. And then we start doing corrections.
Right.
And then after I do corrections, after a certain amount, depends on people's nervous systems, then I have you go walk back and forth to integrate the correction. Because the body and the brain have to realize I just cleared something out.
Right.
And I'm doing video again and showing how the gait has actually improved. And I don't necessarily have to show them. They're already telling me that it feels better. Right. They're like, oh, I feel lighter. I feel more even. I feel smoother. I get lots of answers. And they're all right. And I even get the answer, well, it still feels the same. And I'm like, okay,
Right.
that's all right.
Right.
I
Right.
can see the change, and it's not a big deal. They might not quite feel it. Somebody did that the other day. Now he's got a particular issue, which is genetic. And so he's like, nah, I don't really feel anything. And then suddenly in the video, you can see him talking about, oh no, I feel my upper body. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And I hadn't even touched his legs yet, because the biggest issue's in the legs. And so, yeah, and that's what confuses people a little bit. You're coming to me for knee pain, shoulder pain, or whatever, and I'm not going to look at the knee or assess the knee, but based off the rules of PDTR, it might direct me to a different part of the body that happens to be affecting that body part.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you mentioned the rules, let's move on to this piece. Who invented PDTR?
Dr. Jose Palomar.
Okay. And can you tell us a little bit about his organization? Because he has a website, and there are, like you said, tons of practitioners. You're talking massage therapists. He himself is an orthopedic surgeon. Is that correct?
Yeah, he's an orthopedic surgeon and a neuro guy. And what he found, he's also I believe he was an ambassador for applied kinesiology, which is a big deal.
Right.
And so you're going to see some people who have studied applied kinesiology see a lot of AK stuff in what Jose does. But what he found is that he found these relationships, and one of them we call in PDTR reactor and a reactive. And basically what that is, if I test pec major sternal muscle, which is on the chest,
right,
a much bigger chest muscle.
Okay.
If I test that and very quickly test lower trap, because that's the antagonist.
Okay.
And let's say,
so it's the opposite.
It's the opposite. They oppose each other.
Right.
Okay. So let's say by themselves, they both test strong in the clear.
Okay.
And let's say if I test pec major sternal very quickly, then go into the lower trap muscle, and suddenly that makes the lower trap go weak, or vice versa. Okay.
Right.
Well, now we have a relationship. We have a muscle that's making another muscle go weak. And we need those two muscles to work with each other. Mm-hmm. And so if one's turning off the other, then you're not going to have stability in the shoulder. Okay?
Right.
Yeah. And so
that's such a good point, because I'm not sure that we all understand on the daily basis that we have these pairs that work together to support us.
Yes. I explain that a lot when I'm teaching in class, especially when I have to go over technique and spreading the floor technique for push-ups. And then they can start to really connect with that movement, that it's actually not all about the chest. The down phase is actually more about the back. Right. But we're not talking about that part yet. I'm like, hang on. I know you get so excited, right? And so then what he found, and again, how do you stumble onto this stuff? We just start playing around, right?
Right.
What if I just tap the muscle, with your two fingers, just tap the belly of that chest muscle, and then test the lower trap? It still made it go weak. And you're like, how cool is that?
Right.
Yeah. So we started to put these together. These things together on how it was going into the brain. And there are, oh my God, some of the stuff that we've learned on where the tracks are and where it's going. And it's like reading a neurology textbook.
Right. Well, we have essentially a neural pathway roadmap, right, for our muscle.
Absolutely.
Goes right up into our brain. This is where our pain is created, right? It sends a message from the muscle to the brain, and that's how we experience pain.
Exactly. So we have let's say we have a baseline for the receptors, which we have sensors all over the body.
Right.
And let's say we have a baseline of, we'll just say 0. Okay.
Yeah.
And even though there's electrical activity or what have you, or there's nice activity and everything's testing normally, right?
Right.
Nothing's wrong. Let's say you sprain your ankle.
Yeah.
Okay. So now what has happened is that, of course, once the muscles have healed, the tissue is healed, the issue is that the electrical activity around that ankle has actually gone up. Okay, so now this is when people have instabilities in the ankle, trouble balancing. Oh, I can totally see it when people are in class and they're trying to balance, and you're like, and whether they sprain their ankle or not, I have no idea. But
right. They have some kind of weakness, though.
I can see the instability, and I'm like, God, let me just fix that. It'll be okay. Fighting it. Well, and then in class, it's hard to stop. Sometimes I can do it anyway. So that electrical activity goes up, which means sometimes the slightest touch will cause the problem. Overload will cause a bigger problem, like in a balance pose. You feel like you can never get balance, right?
Right.
And so then what PDTR does is that it goes in and it assesses, because that information coming in is input. The brain has to process.
Yes.
And if it's high electrical activity or if it's aberrant information is going to be processed out. Okay. So this is where we come in. We start testing this, and we go in and clear it out. And, I'll describe it the way my clients will describe it to people.
Yes, please do. Because I like this.
I know, because it's hysterical. I'm basically going to slap and poke you and then flick you in the eyes, and it just magically makes you better. And you're like, and sometimes that is true.
I know. It's weird, right?
Yeah, I slapped and poked you and flicked you in the eyes. And you're like, even Jose's wife will describe it that way sometimes, or some clients will say, oh my God, she just does voodoo. I don't know what she's doing. It's witchcraft. It's whatever. And a lot of people, it's because it is so different. It is so different. And there's such heavy, heavy, heavy science behind it.
Right.
And it's amazing. And it's amazing what he's put together. And he
not only is it, he's working with the physical side, and it's almost like you're interrupting the messages that the neural pathways are sending, right?
Yeah, I'm interrupting.
Yeah.
And I go, oh, here it is. And we find priority is what we're looking for.
Right.
And
so where's the initial problem coming from? When you say priority, that's where the initial problem's coming
where's
from.
the initial, and it might not be
where your pain is.
Exactly.
Right.
And so that through his testing and his protocol, it allows us to find it, and the brain pairs two receptors together to provide regulation over this area as well. So we have to find the pair that is working with that priority problem. And once we find it and I start stimming both of them at the same time, I'm telling the brain, hey, it's right here. I'm right here.
And when you say stim, you're physically touching.
I'm providing the stimulus that's causing the problem, whether that's a stretch, a tap, hot, cold, vibration, whatever it happens to be. And once I flick you in the eyes, which is a reflex, or I use the deep tendon reflex, which could be at the knee, it could be at the elbow. Sometimes people don't have a DTR. That's what, again, a reminder, it's deep tendon reflex. Some people don't have a DTR, and I have to do the eye flick. And so I can get it to just go, it's gone.
Right.
And it's just gone. I'm saying, hey, brain, here it is. We do the reflex, and then it's out. And that's why we have to have you walk to reintegrate the correct pathway.
Right. To seal it. You're sealing it.
Yeah, we're sealing it. Of course, I have to check my work to make sure I can challenge it and the corrections are holding. And and they go walk it out. And another simple way with my clients, I'm basically doing Control-Alt-Delete as soon as I hit that DTR.
You're
Yeah.
clearing
And
the pathway.
yeah. And as soon as you start walking, it's a reboot. And yeah.
That's a great way to describe it. So we've talked a little bit about the physical side. Now I'd like to venture off into the other side. Some people have pain, not because of injury or something physical going on, but something emotional that's going on.
Yes.
So PDTR helps with that as well. So can
Yes.
you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. The beauty part of it is it's not talk therapy. Okay. Because one, I'm not qualified for that. And that's the beauty. And I don't even have to hear any of the words, which is even better.
Right.
Well, not because it's like, because sometimes people don't want to talk about it because they just met me or it's too open or whatever. And because sometimes there's a cognitive word. First, I'll get into the cognitive aspect of it. There might be a cognitive word that keeps pulling that particular pain back.
Right.
And so if somebody thinks the word sharp, dull, achy, because while you're walking back and forth, that's what people are thinking because they're looking for the pain I just cleared out. Okay.
Okay.
Which I always tell people, be surprised by what your body has to offer you. Don't look for the pain. If you look for the pain, those words will actually bring it back. So there'll always be this small percentage, like this 20% of it's still kind of there. Okay. So now I know I have to go after that aspect of it. Okay.
Okay.
So again, I'm testing, they'll think the word
emotional aspect of it. So
it's a cognitive word, but there's an emotion associated with it because it created pain.
Right.
And when it's creating pain, there's an emotion attached to it.
Okay.
Some are more traumatic than others. So the simple ones like sharp and stuff, I'm testing those, clear it out. And sometimes that's that last bit, right?
Right.
And sometimes it is a bit deeper than that because there might have been more trauma around it. And let's say you do work on all that aspect of it with somebody else, there's just still this aspect that's lingering. I again go back in with the muscle test and start testing. If we were in the studio while we were doing this, there's a couple of different ways, but the main way that Jose teaches is that, of course, we're going to use the eye patterns that neurolinguistic patterns use. So up to the right is remembering visual. Looking straight on to the right is auditory remembering. Down and to the right is kinesthetic. Up and to the left is projecting visually. So that's future. Okay. If you look straight on to the left, it's future audio. Okay. Again, projecting. Okay. And then down and to the left is inner dialogue. Okay.
And this is where people's eyes go when they're thinking, so you can kind of pinpoint when this may have happened or where the emotion is associated with.
Yep. And so I'll just test each direction with, a muscle test. And then I'll have an idea of where we're supposed to go. And I just have them think it. They already know what it is. I don't have to know what it is. And as soon as they think it and I do the muscle test, it goes weak. I already know what I'm working with. And and so if it's priority, we have you look at an X and think about it. And if it's associated with an organ on the body or something else, then I have them rub that particular organ that'll be associated with. And again, I'm testing or scratch. And so again, it just depends. And what will happen on that when the body will do something, this could take as little as 5 breaths or as long as 10 minutes. It can take a long time. And what the body will do is it'll give some sort of signal that it's released it. And it's like usually a big breath, or they're having trouble actually staying focused in on it. And so I know it's clearing out. And then that's how that particular PDTR correction is done. And then there's other ways as well. The way that I did it in the coffee shop is that I did itch on your chin,
Yes.
and you had to think about that particular scenario. And then I hit a DTR, and I didn't have to know any of it.
Right. Which
Wasn't
is
that
like so valuable because a lot of people don't know what it is. You know,
exactly?
it's not
Exactly.
necessarily a pinpoint event, but maybe it's an atmosphere they were exposed to at a certain point
Exactly.
in life that just created that kind of burden that they carry around with them.
Exactly. And this is where that intuitiveness comes in. And, you know, I do Reiki. I also do psychic Reiki. And so I'll get, you know, I'll get information, you know,
Right.
people who've, you know, it's not clairvoyancy. You just kind of, at least for me, that third eye isn't clear. You know, I get it other ways. I just get information.
Right.
And, you know, and I ask in a generic question, is it
Right.
this? Yeah. And the body or you will tell me yes or no. And yeah, and I know that part of it's a bit far out there for maybe some of the listeners and stuff, but it's real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of people are receptive to this more and more, that our bodies aren't just our physical body and our mental, capacity separate.
When I started to
It's
go through the Czech
a
Institute,
relationship
yeah,
that we're doing, especially when we're dealing with our health.
yeah, exactly. When
Anxiety can worsen your
it
symptoms.
can, absolutely. When I started to go through the Czech Institute, I really truly thought I was just going to learn physical stuff. And we learned physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual reasons why people hang on to the physical pain.
Wow.
There is a physical representation
And
that
was
I have to
taught in
fix.
this program.
Yes, at the Czech Institute. Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And that was really eye-opening to me. And I had no idea. And that started that journey on that piece of healing, which I still continue to do. And I've gotten as far as that part of it. If I need something deeper, I do Heart of Elijah or cellular release therapy. So now I'm a Heart of Elijah practitioner, so I can work with you one-on-one. I'm not for cellular release therapy, but I go see somebody for my own therapy for that, because there's just lots of stuff I don't remember from childhood, which a lot of people are in that same place.
Yeah.
And they don't understand why they get triggered so much on a particular situation, and maybe they've done other work, but yet they find that anxiety or that terror is amplified, or they just can't sort it out with that particular tool.
Right.
And this is where this at least cellular release therapy is very, very powerful.
Right.
Because it can start clearing all of that out just based off of the trigger list, basically. So yeah, I'll go in a couple of weeks. I have my list already. I'm like, oh my God. But it's so powerful because
it makes a lot of sense, because, we're a product of our experiences. I feel like we're all a product of our experiences. And that's why we have such different opinions when it comes to different values with politics, or just opinions in general, even opinions on food. I don't like this, there's always some kind of experience behind it.
Yeah.
And if we're more aware that, hey, their opinion is really just a product of their experiences up until now, then it makes a whole lot more sense. So why wouldn't it manifest in your body? Why wouldn't it?
My obsession with strength, there is an emotional component behind it. Right. And I didn't actually fully wake up to that till a few years ago. And it was important to me. It's important to me to be strong, not just physically, but now emotionally and such, and mentally, etc. Because it speaks volumes too. On I'm like, I don't know how deep I can go into this, or how personal people want to hear all that. It was to protect myself.
Right.
And you're like,
do that.
Okay, well, I'm not a little kid anymore that now needs that
Armor.
bigger armor. I can like let that go a little bit and now shift those concepts, those mindsets into something that is actually more life enhancing for the person I am today. Because
Right.
those served me then, they just don't
Right.
serve me now. You
Right.
have to honor them. You have
Right.
to honor that struggle because it was that
It's who you
20-year-old
are.
child that took that trauma for you so you could be the person that you become, and you honor all of that. You thank them and let that child heal so you can move on and make the world a better place, you
Right.
know.
Yeah, I
You
love
healed that
that
part of
description of
you.
it. That was a wonderful description of it because I really think that's so true. And we're constantly evolving and should be constantly evolving
Yeah.
on our journey for sure. So, how does PDTR fit into a healthy lifestyle? Is this something that we can or we should be returning to often? Or is it something that we should, correct one particular problem and then be done with it? How does it kind of fit in our toolbox?
Well, it certainly depends on the person that I'm seeing.
Right. Okay.
Um, some people, and you know what, I leave it up to them. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's like, of course I'll give input as I need to give input. If you're one of those lucky ones, those lucky few that I can do one correction and
Yeah.
you're set, because some of that has to do with budget and
Right. There's other factors.
what their lifestyle. So that's where the individual aspect of it comes in. Maybe I can sort it out in one session. That's awesome.
Mhm.
And most of the time I can't. And because usually, depending on who's coming to me, I'm kind of cleaning out that junk drawer
Right.
first
We're
time.
talking.
You know,
Yeah. And that's one thing I want to say to our listeners too, is like, it took you, maybe 30 years, 40, 50, 60 years to get where you're
yeah,
at right now
yeah,
today.
yeah. I
So
mean, it would be nice, and you do get relief. Don't get me
yeah.
wrong, even off of that one session, but it's like it may take longer for me to get this particular issue um, closer to where you want it.
Right.
Okay, because the bone does change over time as well, so there might be a structural change that has happened over the years and such. And so I do offer packages for
Mhm.
that, so I can bring that price down a bit for them.
Right.
I have some people that see me as needed.
Right.
And when that pain starts to come back in a particular area or they lose range of motion, then they make the appointment to come see me because it's a structural problem.
Right.
And I can't fix structural problems because
Right.
genetic issue, life experience that has changed things about how your body is structured now.
Right.
And if it's
But you can
purely,
help relieve pain with those.
yes. So those structural issues increases the software volume, makes things
Right.
louder.
Right.
So yeah, so you're like, I have somebody with rheumatoid arthritis, and she has her particular level of pain now,
Mm.
and which is tolerable for her. She can still go live her life and
Right.
etc. But when it gets above that is when she comes to see me.
Right.
And so and because it's not the medication, she just had stuff done, and she can
Yeah.
feel that it's actually something else. Like,
Right.
oh, when I went to Chicago and it was like 20 degrees colder, this got
Yeah.
worse. Oh, cool, it's a cold dysfunction. Yeah, I can sort that out. And so then it brings the
Right.
volume down.
I see. And what you've mentioned shoulder, like range of motion. Just quickly, if you could tell us like some of the ailments I guess people bring to you. You have like shoulder, rheumatoid arthritis. What else?
Yes. Well, my new client, I had to go research this and get on the PDTR forum and ask other practitioners. He has spastic paraplegia, which
Okay.
is the long nerves in the spine are degenerating, and it
Okay.
really affects the from the pelvis down, and
Mm.
it's a very stiff-legged walk.
Okay.
And so he knows this is genetic. It's not obviously to fix anything, but
Right.
you make him, if he can just get some relief.
Right.
And so when I reached out to the group, there was a person who'd had somebody like this. Actually, a bit worse off than my client at the moment. She was about in a wheelchair, and through chiropractic and PDTR, yoga, she can actually now do squats on her own and stand on her leg, one leg for a little while. And after watching him walk and then just reading about this, that's a major, major accomplishment.
Right.
It's amazing.
Right.
Oh goodness. So like they can't, some of the stuff, it's like their hips hurt, their ankles hurt, their knees hurt. They can't kneel anymore for whatever reason. So I go in and just start going, well, let's see what I can clear out. And yeah, I've got one person who's got the leg length discrepancy is actually big. And so she'll always.
One leg's way shorter than the other.
Yeah, so that just alters everything. And
Right.
so I can clear out some of what it's causing before, it causes another problem. Scoliosis. If it's severe scoliosis, I send them to my friend Heather in Boulder. She's a scoliosis specialist, and she also knows PDTR as well. Okay. So yeah, and it's
in her practice when specifically treating scoliosis.
Oh yeah, she loves, this is her passion. She's a Roth practitioner.
She's a what? What was it?
Roth.
Okay.
Roth, yes. And that's a specific school for helping with scoliosis.
Oh, interesting.
And yeah, and there's another one she does, and I can't remember what it is. But if it's a severe enough case, then that's out of my realm, and I've got to refer them to Heather.
Right.
Such, but yeah.
Right.
Yeah, people have who've been diagnosed with disc problems or tears in the labrum, whether it's the shoulder or the hip. We can bring a lot of that volume down. Yep. Oh yeah. Like I have a structural issue in my right knee from 2 surgeries. So there's a permanent instability there. Right. And boy, the last time I had to have a correction on my knee was probably last year sometime.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was just like, and I didn't actually even feel any pain until Dr. Palomar saw the issue. Oh, that was painful. Not the correction, but he touched on the bursa sac in the behind the knee. I didn't even know it was
there.
Inflamed. I jumped off the table. Oh my God, but it was.
So he detected that just by assessing
walking. Yeah, just by me walking.
And you didn't even know it was there.
No, my only symptom that I would have told you was my calf feels really tight all the time. But then I would go stretch it and I would feel better. And then I would just move on with the rest of my day. No idea. And I was like, oh my God, this is really cool. Wow. But so for me, if I have knee pain, I'll have somebody look at it and stuff, or I'll do a self-correction. I know how to do self-corrections. It's very rarely the priority problem. It's letting me know it's actually something else. It is. It's for me with my knee.
Yep.
It'll be emotionally driven.
Wow.
And I just had happened to put those two together.
Right.
But last Friday I went to Louisville to meet up with Heather. Show her some things, a reminder, some things for PDTR, and because now she's in her own place and such. Right. But I went down with shoulder pain. I've never had shoulder pain ever. And I've had to start picking up one of my dogs because he's old and he needs to be picked up. And it started to create a problem. Right. And I have good lifting technique, but when you're lifting up a 60-pound dog,
it happens.
It happens on top of whatever else I do.
Right.
And she cleared out some dysfunction that was sitting in the shoulder, but there was a lot of inflammation.
Okay.
And I was actually glad I experienced this because now I know more about what my clients are going through when they come to me with shoulder pain. They don't want to move the arm or what have you.
Yeah.
There was a ton of inflammation. She said my shoulder blade was popped off my back. And it was cute. I was like, oh my God. When she runs through the corrections, it still feels sore, but it feels different.
Right.
Sore, and then we played for like 3 hours.
Right.
And then when I went home, I had to get Petey to the vet. When I scooped him up, I went, oh, that feels so good.
Different.
Yeah. And I didn't do this massive overcompensation that I'd been feeling I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was good. So this sometimes does happen. So sometimes
Right.
you clear something out, you're good to go. And then sometimes it feels like I didn't do very much. Okay.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Because there is inflammation that has been created by
And
the
that
body.
has to subside,
It
right?
has to subside.
Right.
So I just let it be the rest of the night. And then the
Mm-hmm.
next morning, my upper trap, mid trap, low trap were all so ridiculously sore from trying to stabilize constantly. I
Right.
actually had to alter my plans for that day. I was
Wow.
going to take Louis for a hike. And because of all that, and anytime my arm swung forward or I was down, it just hurt.
Mm-hmm.
It was still inflamed. And
Right.
so I was like, well, that's okay. You know, I can stay home. It's not a big deal. And just took care of myself is what I
Yeah.
did. You know,
Right.
water. I did at the end of the night decide I want some aspirin.
Mm-hmm.
The next day, waking up, the pain's even less. And today, it's even less. So,
Nice.
but I've been really mindful about when I'm teaching classes. I'm not using additional weight if I'm doing bar, or I'm just making sure I'm walking around and I'm
Just
paying
self-care.
attention.
You're really
Yeah,
taking,
exactly.
you're aware of it. And so you're just,
Exactly. And because I know every time that arm comes up over my head out to the side, it hurts. And so I'm like, well, it's been like this ever since I had to start picking up PD. So it's been a while. And
right.
so it just got super painful that day.
Right.
And so I'm like, cool. So when I see her next month, when we go and play some more,
Yeah.
she'll clear out more. I'll clear out more on her because she had
Right.
things that were still lingering, and
Right.
you know, it was just fun. And so her experience was a little different because it wasn't inflammation, but there was a soreness where it was like, oh, these muscles were working really, really hard and they need time to have a break. And then the other muscles are going to get sore because they haven't had to work.
Right.
So yeah, so there's that lag time. I gotta tell people. I said, don't
Right.
worry, you're gonna start to see things improve.
Improve.
It
Right.
just might not be as immediate as
You would
it,
like.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
But it's definitely, just needs the time to
Yeah,
kind of settle in.
yeah.
So, somebody who's new to kind of natural health and trying different things that are, not recognized to them before, what would you say to them about PDTR, about holistic health, about natural living? What could you kind of pass on to people about this way of thinking that you live your entire life this way?
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah,
I know it's
the,
hard too, because it's like
the
so
benefits
normal.
and what would you say to someone who, is not used to kind of living this way where it's more of a natural lifestyle? How would you encourage them to kind of open their mind to this, I guess?
Okay, just even to start, baby steps. Baby
Yeah,
steps are always the best, and of course, patience has to go hand in hand with that. And
right.
you're not going to it's not going to be this 28-day challenge, even though I put one on for people. You will see changes, but there's a lot of strictness behind it. But baby steps. So through the Check Institute, what we learned, what I go over my checklist all the time is you have 6 foundational factors. You have thoughts. This is all quality and quantity.
Right,
Thoughts, breathing, hydration, sleep, working out versus working in, and your food,
right,
and it's about, of course, we're trying to find balance, but not so much balance that there's no movement, because no movement means you're probably dead.
right,
Right? Because
right.
people went, oh, I don't want any problems. I don't want any of this. So this is something that it's like,
Good way of thinking
sometimes
of
it
it.
tips too far one direction, sometimes
Right,
it tips too far the other direction, and sometimes it's just perfectly in the middle. And that's, of course, that's where that's the addiction, right? Which then can lead to addictions. Excessive behavior, obviously, because this is where the thoughts go. And so then Paul breaks it down even more to Dr. Quiet, Dr. Diet, which is still kind of the same thing, but he puts a lot more of emotional aspects behind that. Oh, happy diet, quiet, happiness, and movement. So those are the 4 doctors.
Right.
And so again, it's about baby steps. If you overwhelm somebody with too many changes just because they're gung-ho,
Right.
we're all gung-ho in the beginning, and we go, oh, I'm still living on planet Earth. And I can't do this.
Right.
If I can get people to drink water, that is an amazing feat in and of itself.
That is so true. Dehydration is a real thing. And I think people don't recognize that.
Overhydration. I'll get both of them. Yeah. Yeah. So it's like, they don't realize. I'm like, no, your pee should not be clear. If it's clear, you're overhydrated and the electrolytes are diluted.
Oh, interesting.
Yes. So it should have that ever so light hint of yellow, ever so light. People don't like to drink a lot of water at first because they're in the bathroom all the time. And I'm like, well, first of all, you're actually flushing out a bunch of toxins, which is a good thing.
Right.
But if you feel like that is a bit too much, you just put a pinch of sea salt into your water. Not enough for it to taste like salt, because then that's too much. And then that'll start to balance the ocean that's literally living inside of you.
Right.
And so, but water's always the first one that I will guide people to. Because when I look at their food logs, that's always the thing I don't see enough of.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I can't thank you enough for being here today.
This was fun.
I'm glad it was fun for me too. And just exposing people to this idea of, just another modality, another tool in your toolbox, because sometimes we've tried a lot of things. And when we haven't had success with it, it can kind of be draining. And
it makes,
where do I go next?
Exactly.
What can I do next? So,
trying to find the right tool for the problem.
Yeah.
Challenging. Yes.
Yeah. So tell people where they can find you. Where can they find you, Christi?
Well, if you want to physically find me, I'm in Loveland, and the studio is on 100 East 3rd Street. So I'm on the corner of 3rd and Railroad. And you can also head to my website, which is lovelandyogacorefitness.com.
Awesome.
Or Instagram. I'm there too.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm going to put all your information up with the podcast so people will know how to contact you. And I just think it's such a wonderful synergistic program that you're doing there out of your yoga studio, offering so much value to your clients. And we're really lucky to have you here in Loveland, Colorado. So yeah, thank you so much. And thank you for being on Naturally Inspired Podcast. If the Naturally Inspired movement makes sense to you, let's do this together and transform the medical model and help people take charge of their health. Learn more about how you can join the Naturally Inspired movement by going to naturallyinspiredadvocate.com or call me at 970-475-4862.